You're driving through America, two-lane highway, sun setting, gas light flickers on, and the town ahead, the one with the faded welcome sign and the closed diner, locals will tell you the same thing every single time. Keep driving. Not because they're unfriendly, because they're honest. We've been conditioned to think danger wears a specific uniform. Big cities, urban centers, places cable news loves to name drop. But what if some of the most violent places in America aren't on anyone's radar? What if they're quiet towns with populations under 15,000? Places you'd never Google, never suspect, never think twice about until you're pumping gas at dusk and realize everyone else left an hour ago. This isn't about crime statistics you can dismiss. This is about per capita violence rates that would make major cities blush. Places where economic collapse met institutional failure, where drug corridors run through Main Street, and where the police department has 3 officers covering 10,000 people after dark. In this video, we're counting down 10 small U.S. towns so violent that locals genuinely warn outsiders not to stop. You'll see data that doesn't make national news and understand why one town has a violent crime rate 6 times the national average, but almost nobody knows it exists. Think you know where America's most dangerous small towns really are? You don't. And that's exactly the problem. Hit subscribe, not for me, for situational awareness. Let's break it down. Number 10, Bastrop, Louisiana. Bastrop resembles Louisiana, but you'd paint it on a postcard until the statistics hit you like a brick through a windshield. Population, roughly 10,000. Violent crime rate, around 1,800 per 100,000 residents. The national average is 380. This is sustained structural violence. Assaults, armed robberies, and shootings that barely make local news because they're just Tuesday. Poverty rate, 35%. Median household income, $28,000. Median home value, $75,000. Not because the architecture is bad, but because nobody with options stays. What nobody tells you, Bastrop sits in a parish hemorrhaging economic opportunity for decades. Paper mills closed. Tax base evaporated. Public services got gutted. When you combine concentrated poverty with a police force running on fumes, violence compounds. Local quote, "We don't call the cops anymore unless someone's already bleeding." That's not cynicism. That's adaptation. You learn which gas stations to use and which closed 3 years ago, but still have lights on. You memorize which streets feel wrong after dark because your neighbor got carjacked last month and the response time was 40 minutes. Emotionally, it wears you down. Financially, low housing costs sound appealing until you factor in higher insurance, security systems, and constant stress. Here's the irony. Bastrop has beautiful oak trees, historic buildings, and river views. It just needs a disclaimer about violence rates that rival war zones. Picture this. You're driving through at dusk. Gas station sign glows weakly. 1 car at the pumps. No attendant visible. Door propped open, but you can't see inside. Your gut says, not here. Keep moving. Locals live with that feeling daily. Number 9, Greenwood, Mississippi. Greenwood sits in the Mississippi Delta with 14,000 people and violence rates that make you check if someone misplaced a decimal. They didn't. Violent crime rate, 1,500 per 100,000, 4 times the national average. Aggravated assaults, armed robberies, and murder rates that spike periodically. Median household income, $25,000. Poverty rate, 40%. Home value, $70,000. Economic reality. Greenwood was built on cotton. When farming mechanized and markets shifted, jobs disappeared. What remained was a town with Depression-era bones and 21st-century problems. The police force operates with a fraction of what they need. Officers juggle caseloads requiring triple their numbers. When you're perpetually reactive, prevention becomes impossible. Local sentiment. Greenwood after dark is a different town. That's not poetry. That's a schedule. You plan errands accordingly. You don't linger. You teach kids situational awareness before they ride bikes. You develop instincts about who to make eye contact with and who to ignore. The constant vigilance compounds. You don't realize how tense you've been until you leave and your shoulders finally drop. Mississippi Delta heat is oppressive. Humidity so thick you drink the air. Add infrastructure with spotty AC, unmaintained roads, and failing drainage, and you've got a physical environment as oppressive as the social one. Let's acknowledge the cultural richness: blues music, civil rights history, and food traditions. But culture doesn't stop bullets. Heritage doesn't reduce assaults. Pride doesn't make neighborhoods safer after 9 p.m. You're on Highway 82, early evening. Quarter tank, Greenwood exit ahead. Gas station's right there. Should be fine, right? Except you remember something, and now you're second-guessing. You calculate the distance to the next town and decide. Push through. Risk the fuel light. That internal calculus, locals do it constantly without thinking. Number 8. East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis isn't just dangerous. It's famously, historically, statistically, one of the most dangerous cities in America. At 18,000 people, it punches violently above its weight. Violent crime rate, over 2,000 per 100,000. Some analyses push it to 2,500. The national average is 380. East St. Louis exists in another dimension. Median income, $24,000. Poverty rate, 40% plus. Home value, $45,000. Properties sell for pennies. The city's been in freefall since the 1970s. White flight, industrial collapse, corrupt governance, multiple bankruptcies, services slashed to nothing. Police force, chronically understaffed, aging equipment, adversarial community relations. When trust is gone, witnesses don't talk. Crimes go unsolved. Cycle reinforces itself. Everyone knows East St. Louis is dangerous. People in St. Louis proper say point blank, "Don't go to East St. Louis." Gas stations have last safe exit jokes that aren't really jokes. Quote from forums: "If GPS routes you through East St. Louis, turn around, add 30 minutes, take a detour through 3 counties, whatever it takes." That's consensus so strong it's civic advice. Streetlights don't work. Whole blocks sit dark after sunset. Abandoned buildings outnumber occupied ones. Emergency services stretched to breaking point. Living here means existing in a space the state wrote off. Emotionally, it's nihilism mixed with stubborn resilience. Financially, it's survival economics. No investment, no opportunity, just getting by. The juxtaposition is cruel. Across the Mississippi River, St. Louis has tourism, development, and investment. East St. Louis has decay and danger. Same metro area, different universe. Winter is brutal. Cold, wind, snow. That means frozen pipes, unplowed streets, failing heat. While repair services won't enter certain neighborhoods after dark because insurance won't cover it. Imagine you miss your exit. GPS reroutes through East St. Louis. Every light is red. Streets are dark. People on corners. Doors locked. Windows up. You don't stop. Just keep moving and pray the lights stay green. That's what tourists accidentally experience, and locals navigate daily. Number 7, Bessemer, Alabama. Bessemer sits outside Birmingham. Population 26,000. Violent crime rates make Birmingham look tame. Violent crime rate 1,900 per 100,000. 5 times the national average. Murder rates spike periodically. Aggravated assaults barely register as news. Median income, $32,000. Poverty rate, 30%. Home value, $80,000. Low for the metro area. Bessemer was a steel town. When the steel collapsed, the economic base evaporated. Infrastructure built for 50,000 people, maintained on a budget for 25,000. Police force, impossibly stretched. Community policing becomes impossible when you're in crisis response mode. Trust has eroded over the decades. Local warning: don't stop for gas in Bessemer after sunset. Don't stop for anything. Bessemer at night is not the same place. That appears repeatedly across platforms from different residents. Not fearmongers, people who know the danger rhythm. Emotionally, it's bone-deep fatigue. Tired of violence being normal. Tired of raising kids with metal detectors at school. Tired of watching the city decline while politicians promise change that never comes. Financially, low housing costs vanish when you calculate hidden costs. Higher insurance, security systems, replacing stolen catalytic converters, and stress tax. Alabama summer heat is oppressive, 90s with humidity. Limited green space, minimal park investment, and roads with potholes deep enough to damage vehicles. You're on I-20/59 at dusk. Quarter tank. Bessemer exits appear. Gas stations right off the highway. Cheap prices, but you remember warnings. You glance at the fuel gauge, calculate the distance to the next major exit, and decide to risk running low. That calculation, locals make it constantly without thinking. Would you trust cheap fuel or trust your gut? In Bessemer, your gut is usually right. Number 6. Helena, West Helena, Arkansas. Helena, West Helena is when two struggling towns merge and discover that combining problems doesn't solve them. Population, 10,000. Violent crime rate, 1,700 per 100,000, 4 times the national average. Murder rates spike so dramatically that the town briefly gains national attention, then everyone forgets. Median income, $24,000. Poverty rate, 40% plus. Home value, $50,000. Not a typo. Homes cost less than used cars. Helena, West Helena sits in the Arkansas Delta, economically devastated for generations. Cotton farming has been mechanized. Factories closed. Population declining since the 1960s. People who remain often lack the resources to leave. The city budget is minimal. The police department is tiny. Coverage spotty. Response times stretch. When you're dealing with entrenched poverty, generational gang activity, and drug distribution routes, law enforcement plays defense with no reinforcements. Local quote: "If you're driving through and need gas, go to Highway 49 during daylight. Anywhere else, anytime else, keep driving." That's community knowledge shared to keep outsiders from learning the hard way. Living here means managing expectations downward constantly. You expect infrastructure to fail, emergency response to be slow, stores to close early, certain neighborhoods to be no-go zones, and trust to be a currency nobody has left. Emotionally, it's a weight. You watch people give up. Watch kids deserving better get trapped in cycles with no exits. Financially, survival mode is the only mode. No savings, no planning, just getting through today. The Mississippi River should be scenic. Instead, it's a reminder of commerce that's dead, of an economy that functioned once and won't again. Summer heat in the Delta is biblical. Oppressive humidity, temperatures turning cars into ovens. One hospital for 17,000 county residents. When things go wrong, you're an hour from comprehensive help on roads that flood. You're driving after visiting family. Late afternoon, gas station appears. Built in 1987, not updated since. One car at the pumps. Flickering lights. Empty lot. No visible attendant. You slow down. Then you see a local's car just keep driving without slowing down. You follow their lead. Would you risk being stranded or risk stopping? Both feel bad, and locals make these calculations constantly. Number 5. Pritchard, Alabama. Pritchard is 9 square miles of Mobile County that time, investment, and government decided to skip. Population, 19,000. Violent crime rate, 1,500 per 100,000, 4 times the national average. One of the highest murder rates per capita in Alabama. Median income, $27,000. Poverty rate, 40%. Home value, below $60,000, sometimes closer to $30,000. Here's what defines everything. Pritchard disbanded its entire police force in 2009 due to budget collapse. They literally couldn't afford law enforcement. The city went bankrupt. Mobile County sheriffs took over, but coverage is thin. What nobody mentions, Pritchard is majority black and historically underserved. Redlining insured investment went elsewhere. This isn't accidental. Decades of being Mobile's afterthought created conditions where violence is predictable. The city filed for bankruptcy. Services collapsed. Streetlights went dark and stayed dark. Parks became overgrown. When you remove every safety net while leaving the population in place, crime metastasizes. Local sentiment. If your car breaks down in Pritchard at night, call a tow truck and pray it shows up before something else does. That's the operating assumption. Pattern recognition. Living here means constant threat assessment. You know which streets flood because drainage systems failed years ago. You know which abandoned buildings are actually occupied. You navigate by risk, not convenience. Emotionally, it's exhausting in ways that compound. Stress doesn't spike and release, it just sits there constantly. Financially, it's a deadlock. You can't sell property nobody wants. Can't improve what the city won't maintain. Can't leave without money. Can't save money here. Alabama's humidity in summer is oppressive. Mosquitoes, biblical. When it rains hard, neighborhoods flood because storm drains haven't been cleared in years. You pull into a gas station mid-afternoon. Broad daylight. Should feel safe, but 3 men stand near a truck in the corner of the lot. Not threatening, just watching. You fill up fast. Keep doors locked. Leave before checking your receipt. You feel ridiculous for being nervous, except every local would have done the same. Pritchard is what happens when a city runs out of money, options, and political will simultaneously. And the people living there aren't the problem. They're dealing with the consequences of decisions made by people who never see the results. You're at the IKEA parking lot. Midday, busy. You load furniture, return your cart. Come back 90 seconds later. Someone smashed your window and grabbed the bag from your seat. Broad daylight, crowded lot. That's Emeryville. That's normal. Would you pay $3,000 monthly rent somewhere your car gets broken into quarterly? That's the Emeryville deal. Number 2, Anniston, Alabama. Anniston, 21,000 people. Violent crime rate consistently ranks among the absolute worst in the nation. Violent crime rate, 2,200 per 100,000, 6 times the national average. A town of 21,000 is 6 times more violent per capita than America. This is sustained year-over-year violence. Median income, $31,000. Poverty rate, 30% plus. Home value, $90,000. For a town that once had a thriving military and industrial base. What they don't tell you, Anniston has been poisoned. PCB contamination from a Monsanto plant poisoned the soil, water, and community. The company knew, covered it up, and left the town with catastrophic health consequences. Cancer rates are elevated. Developmental problems documented. Fort McClellan, a major military installation, was closed in the 1990s. Jobs vanished. And what remained was a town with deep health problems. Zero opportunity, rising violence, and nobody pays attention to it. The police department is chronically understaffed, dealing with gang activity, drug trafficking, and domestic violence at overwhelming rates. Local quote, Anniston's pretty during the day if you squint. Stay until sunset, and you'll understand why people leave. That's a survival manual in 2 sentences. Living in Anniston means navigating invisible health risks and visible violence risks simultaneously. You worry about contaminated soil affecting kids and getting robbed. Asthma rates are through the roof, plus crime rates that match. Emotionally, it's compounded trauma over generations. Environmental injustice. Abandonment plus violence creates stress with no solutions. Financially, people are trapped. Contaminated property can't be sold. Wages low. Opportunities non-existent. Alabama's natural beauty surrounds Anniston. Mountains, forests, scenic drives. But the town feels written off. Investment doesn't come. Businesses don't open. People who can leave do. You're on Highway 202. Late afternoon. Fuel light comes on. Anniston ahead. You've heard about contamination and crime. Gas station visible off the main road. Looks fine, but no cars. No one visible. Stillness feels wrong. You keep driving, gambling on making it to the next town. That gamble, people make it about Anniston regularly. Number 1. Fairfield, Alabama. Fairfield sits west of Birmingham with 10,000 people. It's earned the number 1 spot with violent crime so extreme that it makes everywhere else look tame. Violent crime rate, over 3,000 per 100,000. The national average is 380. Fairfield is 8 times more violent. That's not struggling with crime. That's violence as a dominant fact of life. Median income, $27,000. Poverty rate, 35% plus. Home value, $50,000. Fairfield was a company town built by U.S. Steel for mill workers. When steel died, Fairfield died. Mill closed, jobs vanished, tax base evaporated. What remained was a town built around an industry that doesn't exist, full of people with nowhere to go. Police force, tiny, overwhelmed. Coverage minimal, response times long. The relationship between law enforcement and the community is adversarial at best. When crimes happen, witnesses don't talk. Cases don't solve. Cycle reinforces. Local consensus. If you're driving through Fairfield, don't stop. Not for gas, not for food, not for anything. Keep going. That's the consensus among Birmingham Metro residents. Not paranoia, informed risk assessment. Living in Fairfield means accepting danger as baseline. Every trip requires risk calculation. You don't go out after dark unless necessary. Don't linger anywhere. Trust is gone. Community cohesion fractured. Survival mode is a permanent condition. Emotionally, it's beyond exhausting. Learned helplessness mixed with refusal to give up. People stay because moving requires money they don't have, because family is here. After all, this is home, even though it is destroyed. Financially, low costs mean nothing when opportunity doesn't exist. Alabama heat, failing infrastructure, abandoned buildings, unmaintained streets. The physical environment mirrors social collapse. You're on I-20 near Birmingham. Tank low. Fairfield exit appears. You've heard warnings, seen statistics. Exit has gas stations, probably cheap prices. But you've heard locals say, don't stop. So you don't. You risk the fuel light. Gamble on making the next exit. Because running out of gas feels smaller risk than stopping in Fairfield. That calculation, locals make automatically. For outsiders, it feels dramatic until you understand it's not drama, it's data. Fairfield represents ultimate failure, economic, social, governmental. When everything that could go wrong does simultaneously and nobody intervenes, you get Fairfield. So there's your list. 10 small towns where danger isn't theoretical. It's statistical, measured, real. These aren't places cable news covers. These aren't cities politicians reference. These are towns that got left behind, gutted by economic forces, abandoned by investment, left to fend for themselves. This isn't fear-mongering, it's information, because American highways will route you near these places. When your gas light comes on and the next exit is unknown, you deserve to know what locals know. The uncomfortable truth: small-town America isn't uniformly safe. Some of the most violent places in the country are towns nobody's watching. Places where poverty, institutional failure, and neglect create conditions where crime is inevitable. You don't have to avoid these places entirely, but you should know they exist. Locals warning you not to stop isn't rudeness, it's kindness. Information outsiders don't have. Subscribe if this was useful, not for the algorithm, for awareness. Because understanding where danger actually lives in America is knowledge most people don't have until they need it. Drop a comment. Have you driven through any of these towns? Did locals warn you? Because the conversation doesn't end here. This is the map. Your experience fills in the details.